So tonight's episode, I wanted to focus on, well, let me see. You will know it as Łódź, even though a lot of people would pronounce it Lodz if they don't understand the Polish language. And this is actually, it's like a lesser known city, I'd say, to an extent in Poland. From a foreign perspective, everyone in Poland will have heard of Łódź. In fact, probably a lot of people in Poland have said some rather negative things about Łódź. Some of the things people have said is it's kind of ugly and it's, not that special a place. So I didn't quite know what to expect when I went there. But actually, I was really pleasantly surprised. I've been there twice now and I've had a good time. But I wanted to start by telling you a little bit about the history of Łódź. And so we're going to start with the legend of Łódź and where it got its name. But just so you know, Łódź in Polish means boat. So it's a rather ironic name for this city because there isn't really a river that properly goes through it. Unlike a lot of other Polish cities, and there isn't really that much water there at all. So it's a bit of a bizarre one, but hopefully this will shed a bit of light. So it all starts, back in the 14th century, where a Janusz Piotrowski, who was a peasant from a city called Węcisza, something like that, basically went fishing. So he went fishing on the Bushra river, which ran through this place. And, he took a boat to travel down this river to, try and find out where it started. And he went, as I say, he went fishing, but he was finding that as he was, trying to get the fish, they were very small. And he was like, okay, so he kept going and he kept going. But as he kept going, the river got narrower and shallower, and he was like, okay. So then he ended up in the Łagiewnicki forest, and then he found another river, and he decided, okay, I'm going to travel down this one. And he ended up in a place now known as Staromiejski Park, or if you've been to Łódź or you're planning on going to Łódź, it's near the place called Manufaktura, which we're going to talk about later. And by the time we got to this point, the weather was turning, it was getting dark, it was looking a bit grim, and so he decided to make a shelter. So he was going to go out and get some wood, build a shelter, and then it started to rain. And it's like, right, okay. So he dragged his boat onto shore, turned it upside down, put his paddle against it, and decided to make it his home for the night. Coincidentally, this is actually the emblem of the city. The following day, a girl from a neighbouring village, Wojciech, I believe, was walking, and she found the boat, and she decided to investigate. And so the two met, and as the story goes, they fell in love, they got married, and they decided to make a settlement. So they decided to make this settlement, close to where he landed, and the settlement kind of grew, a mill was built, a small community was forming, and he was trying to decide what to call this settlement. And actually he called it Wódka, which in Polish means small boat, in kind of memory of the boat where he was staying. And there we go. That is the origin of Łódź. And actually Janusz Piotrowski is officially known as the founder of Łódź, so it kind of ties in with the legend. But then, of course, the name's a bit different. So the name of the city was evidently changed, and I believe it was first recognised as Łódź in 1423 in some official court documents. I'll tell you a little bit about the history before I tell you about the city itself. So it was actually kind of owned by the church for about 400 years, between the 14th and 18th centuries. And yeah, it was basically private property of the Kayavian bishops. So, okay, so it was a bit of a holy place, I guess. I can't say for sure. But then when it really, became a bit noteworthy is after like the Second Industrial Revolution in the 18th century. And here you went from a city of about 200 odd people to something the size of Chicago at the time. And what actually happened was it became a big industrial center in Poland. Now this was actually kind of intertwined with the change of ownership of the city, because it was, part of the Kingdom of Prussia, and then it was part of the Congress of Poland, which was kind of controlled by Russia at the time. And you had a big influx of like German and Jewish settlers who came into the city. And so a lot of cotton manufacturing started. And actually, one of the nicknames for Łódź, it's the Polish Manchester, because there is that kind of parallel. It's also known as the lingerie city, because they were manufacturing a lot of clothing, I guess. And yeah, so there we have, lots of factories came up and it really surged in size. And then it didn't actually kind of become like proper Polish again until after the First World War, as a lot of territories kind of came back to Poland then. And, during the war itself, it was a bit of a sad story. So, there was a battle, of course, as there were many battles in Poland, and, the city kind of fell into German hands, by the, hang on, sorry, I've got the date here. It was by September the 8th, 1939. And actually what happened next was rather horrifying. So, Łódź had a very large Jewish inhabitant population. Sort of 200,000 to 300,000 Jews lived in Łódź, before World War II. And so what happened is a massive ghetto, like in Warsaw, probably like a few other places in Poland, a massive ghetto was established. And you can actually kind of see some remnants of this. They've put up a memorial, and you've got like the Radegast station, which I would severely recommend you see. There's a lot of sort of powerful stories there. And next door to that, you have the Jewish cemetery. And, over time, basically all of these Jews, they died most of them died, either, in the ghetto itself, or they were taken to other concentration camps. There were a few dotted around, which were also used for Romanians and for Polish children. But this train station was also taking them to places like Auschwitz and Birkenau. And so it's, a really sad part of the history of Łódź here. And then actually after the war, when the Russians kind of came in, there were actually only 877 Jews alive in the city, and of which 12 of those were children. So really, tragic history. And then after the war, Łódź became the kind of de facto capital of Poland for 3 years, 1945 to 1948. And yeah, but let's talk a little bit more positively. Let's talk about modern Łódź. So what is Łódź known for? Well, I would say, other than, you know, the industrial history that it has and the ironic name, it's also Poland's center of film. It's kind of like Poland's Hollywood, I suppose. You have the National Film School there, which is, you know, internationally renowned, and you have you know, people like Roman Polanski and Andrzej Wajda, sorry, come from this school. And you'll see, like, there's a museum to it, which sadly I wasn't able to visit because it was closed at the time I was there, but you'll see kind of monuments and stars around. But what else? Okay, so another thing which the West is getting more and more acquainted with, thanks to, well, computers and Netflix now, is The Witcher. So you have Sapkowski is from Łódź. Now, when you talk to a lot of the kind of Polish people about Sapkowski, they perhaps don't have the most flattering things to say. I'm not going to go into details there. But I will say I've read a few of the books, I've played a couple of the games, Witcher 2 and 3 I've played, and I've watched the Netflix series, and I love it. Sapkowski, he is special. He's a very special writer. A lot of his work, he's taken kind of existing fairy tales or existing local folklore, and he's kind of darkened it and you know, really made it into his own and created this whole in-depth world. So honestly, like, if you if you're not into games, you're not into TV series, at least I would check out the books. They're all available in English. You know, I think there are 7 or 8 of them. I've got them all. I'm gradually getting through them, though. I have to admit my reading is a bit slower these days. But yeah, there is actually the Witcher Square, named after, you know, in honor of this. I don't exactly know what they were thinking, because there's nothing. I don't think there's even like a statue really to kind of commemorate the fact of, you know, Geralt and his character or anything. But yeah, it's there, you know. It's acclaimed, I guess. But okay. But you know, okay. So if you're going to Łódź, what are some of the things you probably want to see? So firstly, I mentioned Manufaktura. Now this, you know, it's a site of like, you know, kind of 19th century cotton factories. And it's been modernized, of course. And now it's a massive shopping center with like over 200 shops. There are lots of restaurants there. There are bars there. There's a big cinema, like laser activities. I think there's some museums there as well. You know, so it's a, you know, a big kind of place to visit when you go. But what else have you got? So you've got Piotrkowska Street. This is a must see, and to be honest, it's very hard to miss, because it is like, it's over 5 miles long, and it's actually one of the biggest like commercial streets in the whole world. So you've got lots of shops there, you've got bars, you've got restaurants, lots of statues dotted along as well. It's, you know, it's a wonderful walk. And I mean, one thing, you know, hopefully you've seen with some of the clips already, is the architecture in Łódź. I mean, a lot of people, you know, they call Łódź an ugly city, but I think maybe they're referring back to the, you know, the old industrial times. Actually, when you go there now, I think it's quite impressive, quite beautiful. There's a lot of variety, but not in like a badly matched way. I think it's actually got a really good kind of sense to it. You feel like there's like a lot of old buildings there, and there's a lot of individual style in these buildings. And actually, if you were to think of Łódź now, I would say it's kind of like a hipster city. I don't know. It has that kind of vibe. That there's a lot of kind of wall art. You see that dotted, you know, throughout the city quite consistently. Some very interesting designs. I went to, you know, quite a few like craft beer places there. I mean, you have them everywhere in Poland, but you know, Actually, the second time we went there, we were at a wedding, and we were talking to some people who were local to the area, and they recommended a few places. So I hope I've got the names right on the screen, but they were really cool to go. There was this one actually and we went there like, basically there was like a 9 p.m. curfew because of Corona. So we couldn't stay there late, but luckily we were getting our train back the same night. But you just kind of look at these places and they were so empty, and it's like you got to feel for a lot of shop owners, a lot of business owners at the moment, because it's not easy times, certainly. Of course, another famous site there is the Alexander Nevsky Cathedral, and this is kind of like an old Orthodox church. It was built around the end of the 19th century. But it was actually built by Karl Schreibler, Israel Poznansky, Lulius Kunitska, and it was built to celebrate the miraculous survival of Russian Emperor Alexander II. He had an assassination attempt apparently in 1879, which they were commemorating. You've also got, and this is like a really nice place to walk around, especially if the weather's nice, but the Księży Młyn, I think, which is the priest's mill. But this entire area is kind of full of the old factories. There are a lot of kind of museums there. It's one of the only examples of factories like this in Poland that have survived, because most of them were destroyed. In fact, they would have been destroyed, but the Germans had to evacuate the city so quickly that they didn't take the time to demolish everything like they normally did before the Russians came in at the end of the Second World War. So, yeah, this place, it kind of vibes history, and it's just a really nice place, and again lots of things to see around this area. And then also you have a lot of parks, a lot of parks. In fact, I don't think we saw all of them, and actually it's meant to have one of the biggest parks in Poland or something like that, which we again didn't really get to see. I don't think. But we certainly went to a lot. There was botanical gardens there in one of them, and lots of statues, lots of lovely, well-kept, well-decorated parks, and some beautiful scenery. So I can really recommend that. And sadly, this is one of the things that we struggled with, was getting to the museums. So maybe this was Corona, maybe it was bad timing. I mean, we talked to one local and he said, oh yeah, museums, they generally closed on Saturdays, which is kind of odd, right? So maybe if you're going, plan to go on a Sunday. Don't rely on Google Maps, certainly. So check out the websites for the places you want to go to make sure you can see them. Because you have like the History Museum of the Museum of Łódź. You've got this one underneath one of the squares, which is like showing like underground tunnels and things like that, which I think is showing like the old sewage system. But honestly, I've been there twice. I would quite happily go there again, because I honestly think Łódź is a lovely place. I had a good time there both times I went. It was crappy weather the second time, but even that, if you've got some beer to get by, it's just fine. So I really recommend Łódź. It's probably a bit overlooked. It's one of those places to go in Poland, but it's for sure one of the places I would really recommend. So thank you for watching. I am sorry for the slight delay in content. I've been kind of busy lately, but busy getting lots of footage for more videos. So again, thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.